Guess what I'm wearing? A sweater that I knit myself. Yes, this is a sweater knit by me, and I'm so proud of it. Not only because I finished it, it's only my second sweater ever, but because, and knitters will get this, it is a project that I put away for like 2 years, and it is very, very difficult to come back to a project that you've kind of given up on, but I did it. It was like my Everest, and now it's cozy, it's fluffy, I'm wearing it, it's keeping me warm, and I wanted to start with that little ditty because I think my knitting is a great comparison for some of your drawing. So if you are new to drawing and you feel like really in your bones, like it's not for you, like you just don't have that natural skill, I'm right there with you because knitting is something that I thought I could never learn. I'm actually so bad with, I guess the word is kinetic stuff, like anything like building, putting together furniture, knitting, anything like that. I find learning it and doing it so difficult that it's really hard for me to like take the plunge because I just know I'm going to really struggle and I'm gonna be like the last one in the group, like, I don't get it still. Yeah, I still don't get it. So I actually made Chris learn how to knit so that he could teach me. I mean, I encouraged him and he wanted to learn and he learned, and then he was able to help me because he could like decipher the YouTube videos and be like, okay, that's what they're doing. And I was like, how did you see that? I was definitely the person on YouTube being like, can you put the camera closer? Can you slow it down? With every knitting video because it was just that difficult. I have been knitting now about 7 or 8 years, and I'm finally at the point where I'm actually even designing some of my own things, some of my own stuffed animals. I'm in the middle of designing a sweater for Sully. So, you know, I just wanted to say that you can get there. Even if you feel like you don't have a natural creative bone in your body, you can do this. And I'm excited to help guide you, I hope, a little bit. Today's video is just a fun, like quick sketch, like what it looks like for me to just sit down at my desk and just draw for a few minutes and take on a little challenge. And then there's also an illustration worksheet available on Patreon. So if you need that extra guidance, having a video and then a worksheet as well that you can actually print out and follow along with as you draw, I think you'll find that really helpful. I also have an illustration e-course. It's on sale right now. More info about that later in the video, but you can check the description for the code if you just want to go get the e-course with the sale code description. Okay, let's get started. Hey friends, welcome to another tutorial. What am I saying? So here we are at my desk. I'm putting out 2, 3, even 4 videos every week now. So there's a little less ceremony. We just sit down and we get right into it, and just make sure you're subscribed because you don't want to miss any of these art tutorials. Today, I want to do a little discussion of just how I would approach a simple floral illustration. I've been doing a lot of watercolor and gouache on the channel lately, and so it felt like, hey, let's do some drawing. And so I've got a pencil. I have my favorite fine liners, black fine liners. These are like permanent, water-based, good artist pens. I've got a couple different nib sizes. The nib refers to this number right here, like 0.7 millimeters is the actual size of the nib. So if you have a couple different ones, you can really achieve a beautiful precision. And then I do have a black, that's the wrong pen. I do have a black brush pen. It's got this really nice brush on it. So we're gonna do a couple little illustrations, and I'm just gonna show you how I would approach drawing a flower that I really haven't drawn before or haven't drawn much. I've got this wonderful book here that my mom got me for Christmas a few years ago called The Flower Color Guide. It's a great artist tool if you love drawing or painting flowers. I just turned to a page and, you know, cosmos seemed like a great flower to kind of tackle together. So if you have this book, I'm on page 67, and that gives me a nice you know, photo to work from so that I am not just making things up as I go along. And the way I start any sketch is I'll start with a guide. So I'm going to begin with, I don't have to capture this whole thing. That's not my goal, but maybe I want to capture kind of the middle here. I like the way the flowers are all sort of intertwined and overlapping. So I'm going to start with a guide. And the guide, I'll just draw ovals and circles to show me where each flower is sitting. So there's that flower, there's that guy. This guy is more of a circle and he's gonna go right in here. And then there's this guy down here. And we could even draw this guy over here, which he's sort of a semicircle. And of course we can join them all with their little wonky stems and start to kind of draw in even some of these little buds. I really like all these like weird little leaves. Those are going to be a lot of fun to illustrate. So you can see how quickly this comes together when we're not worrying about details. We're just like, okay, this flower is kind of an oval shape. This one's sort of facing the viewer, so it's much more round, a true circle. This guy's on like a bit of an angle, so he's more of an oval. And we just place everything, and then yeah, we put in some stems, and it makes the whole thing quite simple, really. And we can make some stuff up too. Like I can say, oh, I'm gonna have a little wiggly branch that goes over in that direction, fine. And then I might just erase a little wee bit. And then what I can do now that I have this guide in place is now I feel confident in beginning to put some of these details. So let's go back to our first flower. The stamen is sitting very low. The center of the flower is very low within that oval. And then we've got these big petals that come out like this, and they sort of fall away, and there's some really tall ones in behind there. And then at the front, we're seeing just the tops of these little ruffly guys. So all of a sudden we've achieved a lot of detail, and then you can even refine the illustration further. Let's just leave mine at that for now. Come over and do this guy. The stamen, the center, is actually really in the center for the most part. And we've got this big, beautiful petal here, and then like a really long petal up there. One thing you can do is just kind of place all your petals, and then, so we've got some longer petals out on this side, and then come back in and start to refine the shape a little bit more. So first the guide, then place the petals and the stamen, and then you can come back in and start to do the actual details, like what shape is each petal. For this guy up here, I'm just kind of putting those petals in quickly. Okay, so I've got these kind of rounded petals, and then I'll go in and give them a little bit more of a broken, toothy edge and do some of that more detail work. Once I know everything's in the right place, it really frees me up to focus on the details without stressing. So this guy, the stamen is pretty obscured. Let's just place some of these petals. Little one that kind of flicks out at the bottom. There's some more in behind. And then we can start, making them a little bit more ruffled petals. And there's one kind of right in front. Great, so all of a sudden that looks a lot more realistic. Maybe we move this down a little, give him all his little spiky doodads. Yeah, I like that. And then one more flower, what is it, this one here? Let's put the stamen pretty much at center. There are petals that go out pretty much all the way around. The petals are a little bit shorter over here on the right-hand side. That's fine. And then once those are in, we can add the details, give them like that more interesting edge, that kind of thing. Then I want to start placing some of these little leaves that kind of flick out, some little buds. That just helps this whole thing look like cosmos, all these tiny little leaves. That really says, I think, to the viewer, these are cosmos. They've got funny leaves. Okay, so now let's first have a sip of tea. Can do nothing without tea. And then I will start with the contour drawing. So this is just a quick sketch also, like this is just for fun. We just opened it to a page and we're gonna practice like, okay, I opened this to a random page. Can I draw this? Or let's take a shot at drawing it. Now for my contour drawing, that's the line drawing picture, a coloring book image without any shading. That's a contour. We're going to use a larger nib, so the 0.7 millimeter I find to be good for that. And then for the shading that we're going to add, we'll use a smaller nib size, something like a 0.3 or 0.2 or 0.1 or something like that. So let's begin. We're going back to that one that we started with, and I want to begin by making sure that I, have these ruffly petals and they sort of sit in front of that stamen a little bit. And then these guys like flare out all around the flower. Well, yeah, of course, all around the flower. Anywho, let's put some more petals back in there. And then if we add a little bit of detail to the center here, I think the best way to do that is just by filling in with a whole bunch of little dots. Let's come up here and we're gonna just fill in with all these tiny little circles. I'm doing a pretty loose sketch and I'm not mad at that. I think the best way for me to capture these cosmos is to make the petals look really light and fluffy. Is fluffy the right word? Not really. Like very delicate and wrinkled almost. Ruffly, wind blown would maybe is a better descriptor. There we go. And then I'm gonna come down here, and this one also has like some petals that are kind of sitting in front. So let's put them in before we actually illustrate the stamen. Like I'm just making weird lines and weird shapes, and those are gonna be my petals. At a certain point, you can kind of make it up and have a bit of fun with it. Then we make a circle that's made of little circles, little dots. There we go. And we can add some shading later. Come over here. Put those petals in place and then fill in my stamen. Oh, and we still have this little guy up here. So this guy is all about the petals. So let's draw those first. We've got this one that kind of flicks out and another little guy that goes up sort of in front of the stamen. You can't really see much of that center of the flower, and that's okay. We've achieved a nice looseness, and now what I want to do is carry all these stems all the way through. So there we go. And I'm not following the illustration or the book, photograph exactly. I am just having fun here, and we're just going to connect everything, make sure it is all connected somehow. And there's our cosmos. They're looking pretty good. All we have to do now is thicken up these stems. It's not enough for them to be just a line, I don't think. It just doesn't look substantial enough. So let's thicken that. It will come along here, and if it's a little bit wonky and weird, I think that's a good thing. It should look like it's not quite perfectly straight, and you can kind of start to shade that by just adding a few little broken lines throughout. Just leave some negative space showing through. I think that's kind of nice. And if you mess it up, just turn your little mess up into a leaf. Like here, I kind of had a weird section, so I just was like, okay, that's a little curly Q leaf now. That's fine, totally fine. Where else do we have a guy going off here? Gonna have this little bud with all the tiny little leaves surrounding it. And after we're done shading this, we're going to draw it again, but we're going to use the brush pen. And actually, I'm pretty excited for that brush pen because I think these tiny little leaves, the way you sort of flick out, it just lends itself really well to using a brush pen. Get rid of all of the pencil marks. At that point, when I'm done my contour drawing, or my contour drawing is almost done, that's the point at which I like to get rid of all of the sketchy pencil, just so that I can really see what I'm working with. And now we've got a good idea of what our illustration really looks like. And now we get the fun of adding in the shading. Remember, this is just a little quick sketch we're doing. We're just doing a practice exercise today, so things don't have to look perfect. One thing I need to do is add like a whole bunch more little squiggly doodads. If I'm getting like wild enough with it. There we go. But I also feel like it kind of looks like veins or like Frankensteinish or something. So I don't know how many I want to put there. Let's get in here with our smaller fine liner and do a little bit of shading. So something like a 0.3 or like even if you want something really small, something like a 0.05 millimeter nib is excellent for shading. Okay, now the goal here is we want to keep the flowers looking white, so we don't want things to get too oh, this pen is much better for doing my little spider things. Anyway, lost my train of thought. We don't want things to get too dark. We don't want the flower petals to appear overly shaded, because then the flower won't look white, even though of course it will still be white, but it'll just look heavier and it won't have that nice sort of freshness and delicacy that a white flower has. So I am just starting with a few little lines. I follow the shape of the petal. So if the petal's like going out towards the bottom of the page, then that's the way my line is going. And if my petal sits underneath another petal, I'll add a few extra lines there to show that, you know, that upper petal would cast like a little bit of a shadow. And then I'll also place some extra lines right at the center, kind of near the stamen, because the flower is a little bit concave. So we want to capture that sort of shape and depth. I like to put like a few tiny little lines on the outer edges of the petals as well. That helps, I find, to make the petals appear like a little bit more ruffled. Because I'm using that smaller nib, I'm able to be really, really precise, and the flower is still looking nice and delicate, and it doesn't look, the shading doesn't look too heavy because I have that control. I've got, you know, I'm working with a line that is so thin. So that's the kind of precision that is so nice to have when you're doing these sort of pen and ink illustrations. So that's why having a small pack of fine liners of different sizes is so nice. There we go. And let's just shade these guys in. I'm just going to put a whole bunch of little lines on them to make them appear a little bit more circular. I'm not overthinking it. This is just supposed to be a little quick illustration. If you tuned in to Wednesday's video, I was like trying so hard not to do too much and just keep things simple. And I was just like, it was like the video was over an hour. I wouldn't stop painting. So today we're actually doing less, just a quick fun exercise. Like, are these the best cosmos I've ever drawn? No, but I just wanted to challenge myself, like, okay, I'm just sitting down after lunch, got a cup of tea, and we're going to draw cosmos because that's the page that I opened the book to. Almost spelled it wrong. Cosmos. Okay, let's do the same thing all over again, but we're going to use our little brush pen here. And I think I'll just work in the same, on the same page. Oh, what am I doing? I'm not going to use the brush pen yet. I'm going to start again with a guide. This time I might be a little looser and not follow this one as much. I'm just going to make up the flowers, you know, as I go. Put one up here, one going over this way. Do some buds over here with the big spidery leaves. And then, yeah, I've got 4 flowers here, which I think looks good. This one, I'm going to do the shallow petals right at the front, big stamen in the center, and then the larger petals up on the top. So that gives me the look of that concave sort of flower. Over here, I want to do something like this guy where the stamen is kind of a little bit to the left, but still like centered. And we're seeing those ruffly petals and then on the left, and then they give way to larger petals over here on the right. Up here for this guy, I'm going to move him down actually a little. We're going to kind of use this as our reference. Obscured stamen near the base. Petals get much larger along the top, very thin, shallow petals across the bottom. And then this guy, we'll use basically this as our reference. We want him just sort of facing the viewer, dead on center. Petals are all kind of the same size, but that doesn't mean they all need to be the same because we want them to all look a little different. You know, the petals are a bit weird, a bit wonky. Okay, this is going to be fun to illustrate with the brush pen. I can already tell. I'm excited. I'm ready for this, I think. Okay, so I'm going to start, I think, with my stamen at the center here. Start with a bunch of little tiny lines. The brush pen is good for that. And then I get to have the fun of doing these petals. And what I like about the brush pen is that I can do some lines. It's just like using a paintbrush where, here, let's do a nice line where you can pull down and add that extra pressure, and then you can release that pressure and get a line that's, you know, much thinner, much more delicate. So you can have some fun creating the shapes of petals and stems and leaves just by how you pull on that little brush. And I think that's what's so fun about a brush pen. Okay, let's go up here to this guy. few little lines. That's fine. Over here, this guy's on a bit of an angle. So we've got kind of our curly Q scribbly petals. Darken up these stamens a little bit, make them a little more scribbly, a little more substantial. Enjoy drawing flowers, or you're just getting into it maybe, and maybe this channel has inspired you to pick up a pen a little more often and just treat yourself to that creative time. I do have a floral illustration e-course. It's available on my website, or you can go directly to shaydacampbellcourses.com, and all of my courses are on sale for the month of February. Use code FEBSALE to save all month long, and yeah, go check it out. I'm very proud of the courses, and I'm proud of how fairly they are priced. I don't do that internet pricing where it's like, this course is $800, but right now, only today only, it's 90% off, you know, so it's $37. So yeah, I know I just do fair pricing. So when the courses are on sale, the prices I think are very good. And the floral illustration course just came out this past fall, so it's relatively new, and I'm really excited about it. There, we've got a little exploration of cosmos. I had fun trying them sort of two ways. This is just one of those sketchbook pieces that these ones didn't turn out quite as like amazing as I thought they would. Let's hit it with an eraser. There we go. Yeah, these ones, I thought they were gonna look a little different. You know, the fun thing about an exercise like this is you sit down for 20 minutes and you get into it. And then if you see something that you could do better, you can try it again the next day, because once you've got something on the page, then only then can you see what you like and what you don't. And that is so powerful to say, you know, there was things I did successfully here and things that I wasn't as successful with. You know, frankly, I don't think I've quite got the leaves down in either illustration. There's something about the leaves that's bugging me a bit. And, you know, I just would need to give it another try. There's things about the pen, the brush pen that I really like. I like the scribbly stamen. I think it just looks loose and really free. I think I could have been a little more delicate with some of the petals. Sip of tea. Why don't we just try it again? Just so I can show you. I think it's good to leave it alone and say, there's things I like, there's things I don't. I'll come back another time. But why don't we just give it one more try? With the brush pen particularly, because I think the ones with the pen and ink, like the regular pen, turned out just fine. So I'm gonna do like a scribbly center. Now I'm not giving myself a guide, and I think maybe for the brush pen, that's maybe kind of nice. I really want some of the petals to be like so light and delicate and barely there. And so that's what I'm going for. I really think what I was lacking was like weird petal shapes, petals that kind of flick out one way and don't really look right. Yeah, I'm already enjoying that a lot more. And then I don't think the brush pen needs a whole lot of lines. I just think that makes it look too heavy. Let's try another one. Let's do one where we've got these like little short, delicate petals in front. Those are going to give way to larger, longer petals in behind. Ooh, I'm liking this already a lot more. Scribbly stamen. Maybe some little dots around it. Okay, so this is going somewhere. I'm liking this a little bit better. And then we could have like one more up here. This is fun. I still don't know if I'm gonna be successful with the look of the leaves though. But you know what? Well, let's just try it. That's maybe a bit better. Just really using just the tip of that brush. Fun. I always find once I've done some with a guide as well, then all of a sudden I'm going to be a lot more successful doing it without a guide if I've got some that have the guide or if I've just drawn some with a guide. You know what I mean? I think you get it. I don't know, guys. Did I make it better? Did I make it worse? Let's just leave it there again. And we'll just file that under Shayda loves some scribbly florals. And sometimes they're so good and so beautiful, and sometimes they're just scribbles. And I think that's a beautiful thing. Remember, I have a floral illustration e-course as well as 2 watercolor e-courses, and they are on sale for the entire month of February. Go check those out and use code FEBSALE to save all month long. Thanks for hanging out and watching today, friends. And if you would like a little extra guidance today with this illustration right here, I have developed, I'm so fancy. I made a little worksheet. A little illustration worksheet is now available over on my Patreon. You can sign up to become a member. It's a great way to support the channel and get bonus content every week. Last week was the first weekend of the month, so there was a brand new tutorial that is not on YouTube, just for the patrons, all about painting snowdrops, and it was a kind of an exploration of creating texture within a painting. And then this week, the bonus content, of course, is the worksheet, and there's coloring pages usually and stuff like that. So go sign up. It's only $3 every month. So you can pay monthly, and it's just $3. That's it. $3 USD plus tax. Okay, guys, I think I've said enough. Thanks for hanging out and watching. Patrons, go get your worksheet, and I'll see you soon with a new tutorial. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the new content. Don't be leaving me those comments like, glad you're back, good to see you. Sorry, that's just a joke from another video. Thanks for watching today, guys.